Welcome to the Land Investing Business Secret Podcast, where each short episode we talk about the strategies, experiences, and the tools to help you launch, grow, and scale your land business. Learn how to find freedom within your own business, find out ways to build consistency in your processes, and hear how other everyday land investors are winning so you can get to the next step closer to building your dream life through your land business. And I'm your host of the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast by Pebble, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse here from the Land Investing Business Secret Podcast. I've got a very special guest here. He's actually a return guest, Sumner Healy. A lot of you guys might know him. He runs an amazing community. He's an awesome Pebble user and supporter of ours. And we talk a lot about tactics on choosing your market and what that process is like. And he's got a new solution as well that I want to make sure that I share on this episode. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. You're going to need to listen to this a couple times because he is going to blast you with a lot of tactical stuff that you can do on your own right now in terms of choosing a market. How do you price? But anyways, I'll leave it to Sumner to talk more about that in this episode here. Cheers. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I've got my friend here and return guest, Sumner. Sumner, how you doing?
Good, man. Good. Third time's the charm. I think it's our third one together. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, but and we'll continue to have you on here for sure because you are always trying different things and experimenting with different things. And it's always really exciting. One of the things I really appreciate from our last episode was just how transparent you were. If you guys haven't listened to Sumner's interview with me previously, I feel embarrassed, but I don't know the episode number here offhand, but you can certainly search for that with Sumner. But Sumner, first of all, how you been doing and what's new here?
Oh, man. Dude, a lot has changed. On a personal level, currently I live in Las Vegas. I'm leaving Las Vegas in about 4 or 5 weeks, and I'm moving to Bali, Indonesia, which is a really big deal, kind of crazy. Everyone I talk to says that's absolutely crazy. But you know what? Dude, it's a beautiful country. The local culture is amazing. They call Bali the island of the gods. So it's like super spiritual, and you can just feel it there. People are so kind, and there's karma plays a big role in the religion. It's a Hindu culture. And so people are just thoughtful, man. It just feels good to be around that. There's a super cool expat entrepreneur scene over there.
Yep.
And like real entrepreneurs, not like affiliate marketer entrepreneur. I mean, there's some of those, but like real entrepreneurs. Right. And also, I mean, the arbitrage in the currency is crazy. So for the same amount that we pay here, we'll have a 5,000 square foot house, cooks, private drivers, maids. So I think like the efficiency of having to delegate all it's going to be crazy. And to live that lifestyle in America, you'd have to pay ungodly sums, So
yeah.
I'm pumped. We're actually very tentative, but we're thinking about doing like a 20 or 30 person meetup there next year and like blending it with land and adventure. I think it'd be super fun.
Awesome. So all you guys listening, now we have a place to crash at.
Come through, come one, come all.
Cool. Well, congratulations on that. Really exciting stuff. Other than you making the big move, I mean, this really drives home the point that, running a land business, you are able to really work from anywhere, which is amazing to see. And I know a lot of us are mostly stateside here, but we definitely know a lot of people that are also living out somewhere in Asia or wherever around the world. I mean, I had Kevin, my co-founder, he was living when we started this, and when he was doing more on the land side, he was out in Korea. I'm here in Canada, so it's awesome to see that. And I encourage you guys to think far and think ahead when it comes to crafting your lifestyle, because it is that exciting when you can run a business that gives you freedom. But okay, let's come into the land side of things. I really don't need to introduce you again. You can learn more about Sumner on past episodes, or you can find them all over YouTube. What has been going on with the land side of things? Give us an update since our last chat, which was last year.
Yeah. Dude, a lot has changed. I forget how deep I went on things, but I'll kind of open back up the thread that I think we might have talked about a little bit. I think anyone here who's been in the land business for a while can tell you, like 2022 was a weird inflection point in this business. I can't remember. I mean, I think Q4 is where I felt the effects, like negatively, but I think it was more like the summer of that year when I started to see things change. And really what was changing is the crazy liquidity of COVID started to dry up. And so deals were harder to sell. There are some markets that we were in where like there was just a race to the bottom. And these aren't like cheap properties. There's like $100,000 properties where 3 months later they're trading at $60,000, which if you know much about land, that's pretty much most of your margin gone right there. And I got my butt kicked, man. I'm not going to lie. I went to the Big Island of Hawaii. I went there in December 2022. I had a great trip. I went there with my newfound girlfriend. It's like our first big adventure together. But I was having like an existential crisis at the same time. I'm like, I didn't know how to fix this. And I started the business slightly before COVID, and then we had the COVID surge. I think I built a lot of bad habits, or I just got really lucky, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so I've been on a quest for the last few years to figure out how can I remedy some of the stuff. And the things that I'm looking to remedy, one, how can I increase my ROAS? So we talked about that before, kind of like the life metric or lifeblood metric of a land business. And I've seen enough now to understand that there are levers to pull besides just send out more marketing or talk to more sellers to get more deals. The next thing is I've always been a delegation guy. So like I've always had like a big team, and we've kind of shrunken our team down. Now I'm thinking about how can I use technology to kind of fill some of those spots. I just found having a big team comes with so much friction and complexity. Like my new obsession is high revenue per employee. It's like my sexy metric. I'm like, how can I have the highest revenue per employee, but small, nimble teams? And then the last point is just I was just wasting a ton on our marketing. Like just if I looked at a lot of the data we're getting back, I don't know why this took me so long to understand this, but again, I think this is where bad habits were built during COVID. Maybe 40 to 50% of the deals I would get back from inbound leads would be properties I wouldn't even want to pursue. Like put aside their qualification or lack thereof. And so when things got hard, I had to start kind of looking at, holy crap, there's a lot that I'm doing poorly here. So that's been the journey. I'm happy to say we've remedied a lot of that. And also the business has gotten a little bit better. 2023 was a pretty good year. I think this will probably be our biggest year ever, to be honest. But there's still a lot of changes happening in the business. If anyone's following along, you know that some of the wholesaling double close stuff is changing. Some of the value add stuff is becoming more competitive. Some of the exemption-based subdivides are like very hot now. So we're trying to be nimble and see where the puck is going. But yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the team size of things, because I think a lot of people always don't. I get asked this a lot. Typically how big a team should be. So you talked about hiring too big. You've cut back on that. What size are you at? What size did you get to, and what size are you at? And what do you suggest for people to? Is there a magic number that people should hang around?
Yeah, I think there really is a magic number. And the good news is like the roles are already pre-filled out for land. So there's no guesswork there. And it's just as your business grows, it's kind of just a repetition of the same roles over again. So right now I think we have 6 people. I think at our peak, we were probably at 11 or so.
Yeah.
And nowadays we've got our acquisition team, so 2 people on that acquisition team, operations team, people that run our texting, marketing, and some kind of VAs that sit underneath them. I mean, I honestly think as a new land investor, I've talked about this before, but it's really simple. You come in 6 months to 12 months in, if you're doing well, you need a generalist VA. So they're going to come in and handle, like, I always say, like every deal you do, there's like 40 different checklist items. In fact, if you use Pebble, you see the checklist, right? Especially if you use the Leah Pebble. It's like all the things you got to cross off. So someone to do that, kind of like a mini COO operations person. It's pretty low value though. It's not like a super expensive role. Then an acquisition manager, then probably an intake manager sit under that. And then just kind of repeating that process over and over again. Eventually you need managers and someone to really run operations. And this is assuming that you're bringing dispositions external, which that's one of the big changes that we've made in the last year and a half was removing our whole dispo team. And I think because what we learned is that like it became harder and harder to do the same deals that we were doing on land.com or on Facebook or what have you. They just became more difficult. I don't know if there's more people there, there's less buyers there. And I've always said like where you feel competition in the land business is on the dispo side, because in any given market, there's only so many buyers. It's actually easier to acquire land, in my opinion, especially if you're working in like the Costilla counties of the world. And we started to mix in some more creative dispo strategies like double closes, which having a realtor on your side, to me, it's mandatory. It's almost impossible to not do it.
Right. And so fast forward to now, what are you guys, what's working for you guys, and what are you experimenting with then?
Yeah. So we went through like some growing pains last year, trying to add value add in and find our sweet spot. We were doing some entitling, so creating paper lots, some exemption-based subdivides. We've pretty much removed a lot of the entitling. We're interested in rezonings, but I'm not interested in doing like crazy paper lot developments. So exemption-based subdivides. And then flipping for us is still, a big part of our business, but we're mainly flipping, I'd say 50-50 double close versus cash close. And so we're only closing on the things that we absolutely love. I think deals that were like a little funky that could have sold in 2020 are harder to sell nowadays. So the one with weird access, bad topo, like those are the things that we're going to double close. which
Yep.
that's going through a whole litany of changes itself currently. And we're still building our owner finance portfolio. So I think last year we probably added 20, 25 grand a month of new recurring revenue. So we'll probably do something similar to that this year and still just kind of building that in the background.
All right. So in this episode here, you just heard Sumner talk about building a team, how he sort of brought on a lot of people. He had to slice it down, but there's a process to bringing on a generalist, an acquisition manager, and all these sort of other hires. This is all, Sumner is a huge believer in delegating work and making sure he focuses on the high level things, which is what you should be doing early on, or at least putting yourself on the track to doing early on. And that's exactly what I talk about in what I call the Dirt Hacker Challenge. It is a 3-day, I used to have it as 5 days, it is now a 3-day. I've condensed it, bootcamp workshop with me, an hour and a half every day, where we talk about the framework to scaling a land business. It actually can apply to any business, but we're going to talk through it in the lens of a land investing business. Really, the 4 pillars to putting together or building a sustainable and scalable business. I go through with that with you. Now, we don't talk about pricing. We don't talk about offers. We don't talk about choosing county. It's people like Sumner who's going to do that. What I'm going to talk to you about is how do we create processes? How do we centralize data? How do we, get and tap into automation? Should we actually be automating? You hear in this episode here with Sumner how a lot of it should be done manually. A lot of things that are not done with scale in mind at first, but how do we then transition to that? We talk about hiring. How do we build a team? This is all I do in the Dirt Hacker Challenge. So if you're interested in joining me, I've made this super accessible, and I mean that even on the dollar side of things. It is probably no more, probably cheaper than a dinner, honestly, to join me on this. So head over to dirthackerchallenge.com. I run this every month. So make sure you join this. That's dirthackerchallenge.com. Join me for the 3 days. It is a live session with me, 3 days. We're going to get a lot done on those 3 days. Anyways, I'll let you continue enjoying this episode and taking a lot of notes probably here with Sumner. Awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, I'm gonna go back to this because I thought it was interesting. You are you've cut down on your team size, and you've also started exploring technology. And there's, the big topic right now is with AI and what's going on with that. Does that play a role, or is it other pieces of technology that you're utilizing that has sort of made a big difference for you guys?
Yeah, so it started all manual with VAs, and then
Yep.
there's a little bit of AI or kind of machine learning, if you will, to some extent. But
Sure.
really, the tech needed to do a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about here today, and everything we cover can be done with a VA. I find it's expensive. But
Yeah.
a lot of what we're doing, like on the land insight side, we're just taking data that's like disparate and all over the map and just putting it into one centralized place. That's what you see in land. It's like to find out if you want to validate a market or validate a deal, you're looking at 12 different platforms, you're looking at all these
Yeah.
different places. So just kind of bringing that all under one umbrella. So the big switch for me, like Q1 to 2023. So after that big whoopsies in 2022,
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, I'm going to go back to the drawing board and figure out what the heck makes a good market. Because at that point, I just been playing the game of follow the leader, like what everyone else does. You know what I mean? Or I just blindly sent to a market. It did well. I'm gonna keep on working there.
Yep.
And that was pretty much my strategy. In fact, one of my classic market selection strategies was if I had a market that worked, I would just start attacking all the adjacent markets, which like
Mm,
can be a good indicator, but also in a lot of cases, it's actually not correlated at all. So I
right.
started studying what makes a good county. That was the first thing we started looking at.
Mm. And so what actually makes a good county then?
The $1 million question. Yeah, it's pretty simple. And look at the rules for this are hard, fast rules. Like I think at a certain point, there's exceptions to every rule, and there's time to break these slightly. If you're a new land investor, though, I think it's pretty helpful to have something that's binary. So if you're doing the rural recreational stuff or rural infill, that's what we're going to focus on here. We're looking at markets that have between 25 and 250 active listings. Okay, not too little on the active listing side because the data is too all over the map, and we'll talk about what I mean by that. Also, you just don't have very many comps, so it becomes hard to actually figure out pricing or when you get deals back to underwrite them. And then too much supply. This is one of the big whoopsies that I made in 2022. Dude, I would get lost in the shuffle in these markets. So when some of these markets dried up and there's 500 listings, I'm on page 10 of Zillow. No one ever sees my listing. I'm gone. And so it's like that sweet spot, right? And then the next thing that we look at is what we call sell through rates. So what percentage of that inventory is turning over a set time period divided by the on-market listings. So typically what we look for is like, and look, it changes. This stuff is cyclical. The market's always evolving and changing. And I think it should be state specific because every state's slightly different. But anything over a 10% sell-through rate is a pretty good jumping off point. As in 100 active listings, 10% turning over on a 30-day period, so 10 sales. That's a good starting point. There's way better markets out there, but it's a good starting point. We want to see that continuously over the last 12 months. You shouldn't see too many huge blips either way. We want to see something similar on the under contract as well.
If somebody were to go, like somebody listening here, okay, cool. I want to figure out the sell through rate in this county here. Can you explain us manually how can somebody actually do that? What are the step by steps to actually calculate a sell through rate?
I'll zoom out even one step further and I'll give you guys a little extra sauce. So usually what I do for starters, you go to land.com, type in whatever state you want to work in, go click under the sold or under contract. Just look at those and see which one has the most volume. Take that, pop it on Redfin, go look at the stats on Redfin. I prefer that over the other platforms. How much is actively listed? Go look at the 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, 12 month, and just divide those by the active listings. And same thing for under contract. You can do that on any MLS platform, but I find that Redfin's the easiest to kind of manipulate.
Okay, gotcha. And then, so you've got all these sort of pretty hard requirements that people should go through in order to choose a market.
Yeah.
Is there a time where it's just like, hey, this is too much analysis and I should just move forward with it? I hear a lot of people get hung up. Or should we actually be very analytic when it comes to choosing a market?
Dude, it's a great question, and I have a strong opinion on this. So actually, I see the inverse being true. I see people that come in that are being analytical, but they have nothing to analyze, and so they get paralysis analysis. When you have a playbook, sure, you're still going to be analytical, but now we've got rules that tell us blatantly this is a yes or that's a no. And look, there's times those rules aren't accurate. Nothing's perfect in this business. But if you're coming in and you have no rules, I think it's where people get lost. And so a lot of the people out there, or educators or YouTube videos, are just like, go pick any old market, toss out some mail. And I find people actually get stuck on that step because they're trying to weigh things with no way to actually weigh it. And so in the beginning, I think people need a very prescriptive kind of binary process. Look, you'll miss out on some markets, you'll miss out on some deals because it's so narrow, but I think it's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the other thing you mentioned here is if there are a lot of listings, is that generally like when I think about it, if there's an area that has a lot of listings, I feel like, okay, this is an active area. I'll probably figure out a way to offload this property here. But is that, I mean, you're telling me the opposite here. Hey, if there's too much activity here, is there a certain amount of activity that we should be worried about or looking at, and then if that does meet that rule, we sort of move away from there?
Yeah. Yeah. So we want to think about like validating a market by what's actually sold opposed to what's actively listed. So I think a lot of people have the same belief that you do. Hey, there's a lot of listings here, there's a lot of activity. But I could go point out many, many markets where there's a lot of listings, but not much activity, right? And what happens in that situation, that's why the model that's been taught in land is cheap owner financing or selling at half of the value of the property. That's the only way to bring liquidity to an illiquid market. The game I'm trying to play is go into really liquid markets where I'm selling at 100% of its retail value because there's just minimal competition there. Now, the asterisks that I'll add to this, though, and I think some people can get tripped up on this, go pull like a fill in the blank market in whatever, Florida or something like that. And I've tested this. There are markets out there that have 2,000 listings, but they're still turning over 10% a month. Like they're still turning over 200 listings a month. So you think, well, the sell through rate's still good enough. Yeah, what I found though is on day 3, you're already lost in the shuffle. And it's not to say you can't sell deals there. I just find it a lot harder. Through this process, we've actually got hard data. We've measured this. The average days on market, and it fluctuates for land investor, but the industry average is about 90 days, something like that, right? Some people it's a little higher, some people it's 90 days. I think that's a safe bet right there. We've taken that from 90 days down to like low 30s just through this process, nothing else. And we've actually back tested this with all the Land Insight users. So you're talking about chopping it down by 2/3 essentially. That's a big deal. And I don't think people fully realize the weight of compounding your money that quickly. Because if I'm coming in with 10 grand, it's like the more I can get money back and reinvest, where I end up at the end of the year is very different than the next person,
Sure. Right. Okay. Now let's just say you've picked your county, you've looked for a market. What's sort of the next step here then, or what have you been trying after that? Is there anything else that you want to share with us?
Yeah, for sure. This is some tactical stuff. So I hope people at home are taking notes or writing this down because I promise you this works. In fact, this strategy is what we created inside of Leah, and then recently we've just kind of been figuring out, okay, how can we make it a little bit easier to execute on it? So it's one thing to find a high demand market. If you're watching this at home and you're in this process, you know what I'm talking about. You find a smoking hot market. You go to pull the pricing and try to understand the values in the market. Can't make sense of any of it. Like, what the hell am I looking at here? It's all over the place. So the model that we teach inside of Leah is you need to find pockets of homogeneous pricing. There's a slew of ways to do that. There's actually way more ways than what I'll list here, but the main ways are going to be through zip codes. Zip codes typically have reliable pricing. Next is going to be through polygons, so breaking markets down by geography. As in, I have a valley and then I have mountains. Those should be separated because they're going to have different prices. The next are subdivisions. We find subdivisions typically have kind of continuous pricing. And then the last one is going to be acreage ranges. So actually grouping markets by very tight acreage ranges. So what I'm going to do is pull that data and I'm just going to go grab it from Redfin, let's say. I'm going to start kind of perusing through those sold comps and trying to see what if, once I remove the outliers. So the outliers would be the properties that are swamps or on the side of cliffs. Like those aren't the things that we buy. Same thing, outliers apply on the high end. Like I see houses all the time in our data set. What's that spread from the low to high price? Okay, so when I remove outliers, what's that delta from low to high? I typically need to see under 100% delta to feel comfortable I can comp. As in the lowest was 4,000 an acre, highest 8,000 an acre on a 12-month period. Now, if I can't do that, I'm going to have to start kind of parceling out and breaking these markets down. Now, pretty much you'll never find any county that shows you that delta from 1 acre to 1,000 acres. So you're going to have to start layering typically acreage ranges to start. I might be looking at the 5 to 10s. And then if that doesn't work, I'm applying other filters to kind of fracture that, right? Now, it's a pain in the butt. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of work. Kind of sucks. One of the things that you can do really quickly, though, is that markets that are homogeneous in the lower acreage brackets will always be homogeneous in the higher acreage brackets. Like Sumner, what the hell is that? What does that mean? Well, what I mean is if the 5 to 10 acres are priceable, the 50 to 100s are for sure priceable. Pricing becomes more consistent in the higher acreage brackets. So what you can do is go pull a market, go pop the 5 to 10s on Redfin. Don't even download the data. Show me the low price and the high price in the last year. Just go look at what is that delta there. And that's what you haven't removed outliers at that point, but it's a starting place. Pain in the butt, right? So we were having VAs go and do this for hundreds of counties in the US. We were at about 10% of the counties in the US that we were tracking this monthly in a spreadsheet and then applying the pricing information in there. To do that was like $1,500 for a tenth of the counties in the US. Super expensive. But what we started doing is creating what we call a Gini index. It's an index that scores markets by how homogeneous they are. So it kind of applies some of those rules I was telling you about here. Anything under a 40 Gini is pretty tight. Anything under 20 is like, this is going to be a cakewalk to price. And we track the median price for every acreage range over every time frame. And for anyone here, if you're using averages, you need to stop. Averages do not work in land. It's all median.
Interesting. Okay. Can you explain to us, for those who are listening, what do you exactly mean by homogeneous?
Yeah. Homogeneous means like, homogeneous would be like, hey, I've got two things that are similar, right? I've got vanilla ice cream and I got vanilla ice cream. When I'm looking at homogeneous pricing, I'm looking really for starters, honestly, to zoom out. I'm looking for properties that have similar features or markets that have similar features. So I first think about being homogeneous from a visual standpoint. So if I go pull up San Diego County, what do I see? I see ocean, beach line, cities, mountains, desert. It has everything. It's like the farthest thing from homogeneous. Go pull a county in Oklahoma. Visually, I'm like, it's all the same. It's vanilla across the board. So I think about it visually, and then homogeneous is in the pricing is telling us a story where things are tightly grouped. As in, again, I'm just looking for anything under 100% delta. Are there times to break that rule? For sure. It's a starting point. That's really for folks that are doing blind offers as well. Range offers, neutrals, different norms.
Now, you talked a lot about zip codes earlier. Tell us a little bit more about zip codes. So, how should one, if, are you saying that, hey, this zip code typically is this pricing, this zip code is this pricing? Is that how it works, and is that what you mean?
Roughly. It's not perfect. And as we get into metropolitan areas, it does start to break. But what you'll even see with home values is if I go look at a zip code in LA County, the nice homes are in one zip code, the not so nice homes are in a different zip code. There's a logic to them. In fact, some people say it's like racial profiling or there's a bunch of negatives that go with it. I don't know all the ins and outs. It's not as perfect in lands, but it does carry over. And so you'll find that usually zip codes give you pretty tight grouping of pricing, or at least a better jumping off point than a county. So my process is top of funnel, find the hot counties, and then figure out how to fracture those. And zip codes play a big part of what we do. Dude, the problem is, how the heck do you go find all the zip codes? It's such a pain in the butt. There's no database where you can go pull all of it. You got to go look at a zip code map, apply them individually inside Redfin or whatever you're using. So the first thing that we started with last year was counties, whatever, 3,000 plus counties. It was a pain in the butt. We did it manually with VAs. We got a tenth of them, and then we hired a developer out of I think the University of North Carolina. We paid him like 10 grand. We're like, dude, automate this for us, and it kind of worked. It was in Tableau. It was ugly, but like it worked. And we just started kind of cracking the code one step at a time. So the next thing that we eventually added was zip codes, which is like whatever 40,000 zip codes or something like that. Now the thing is with zip codes, with counties, with even with polygons, even sometimes with subdivisions, usually that acreage filter is going to be applied on top of them. So I'm not going to go try to price a whole zip code. I'm going to try to price the 5 to 10s, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, on and on again. So acreage ranges almost always tie into what we do. There are exceptions, but more times than not, that's going to be a layer on zip codes or anything else.
So is zip code your first go-to way to segment out your county, or you also meant like sort of geographical features as well, or is it a mix of both?
So I'll give you my advice, and or what I do, and I'll give it to like the newer person. So if you're new, I don't write zip codes are too difficult. The way I like to do zip codes is I want to have like a database that like color codes them and shows them, hey, this is the right zip code, opposed to kind of parceling out each one individually. If it's a pain in the butt. If you're a new land investor, what I recommend doing is you can think about zip codes as a backup strategy. It's not my first line of defense. My first line of defense is I pull up a county. I'm instantly saying visually, is this homogeneous? If it is visually homogeneous, I'm thinking, can I break this down by acreage ranges, right? We're going through easiest to most difficult. If that doesn't work, well, what happens if I stack a polygon? Okay, well, if that doesn't work, are there any zip codes? And then are there any subdivisions? So it's kind of like the sequence of processes. Yeah, if you don't have that data, I just find it too difficult to have it to be your go-to. Now, for me, it is the canary in the coal mine. So now that I have access to whatever 40,000 zip codes, I just say, hey, show me every zip code in whatever North Carolina, apply it as a heat map, and show me where the activity's at. And what you'll find that happens, dude, is we'll be in some counties where there's 10 zip codes, but I only want to work in 2. Then I'm in another county in the same state where I'm in 5. And so it's rare that we take every zip code in the market.
So, okay, you've mentioned this a few times, and I'm quite curious. What are you using to do that? What is the process typically like?
Yeah, so it started with scratching our own itch. Like I mentioned, we first built out a team of VAs and the market selection stuff. The thing that we did before hiring the developer from North Carolina was we also built out a team of VAs to scrub our data. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. This to me is a no-brainer that everyone should be doing, regardless of what strategy you're following. And we're spending thousands of dollars a month, and it still wasn't perfect. So there was a lot of slippage on the scrubbing, and there was also, we're getting kind of a tiny fraction of the data for the counties. Hired a guy from North Carolina, built out this database in Tableau, where he's using it himself, talking about it inside of Leah, and people were like, hey, that sounds interesting. So then we released it to a batch of 25 people. It like sold out like within a couple of days. We're like, oh my God, okay, there's interest here. It was so clunky, dude. It was I mean, shout out to everyone that stuck with us, because that thing was a real clunker. But there was an itch there that needed to be scratched. And inside of Leah, I think it's a little different because we spend so much time talking about market selection. So really our user base is spending about 10 to 12 hours a week just selecting markets because we're so selective. So it really resonated with them. And yeah, now we've got our own UI. We're off of Tableau, and it does a whole litany of things. Market selection has all the pricing intel you need, scrubbing your data. We pull realtor reports, so you can pull any county, pop in wherever you want a realtor, and it'll give you the list of the best land realtors there. And we actually just added skip tracing as well. Kind of a non sequitur, but what I found is that there's deals that we get where I don't have the email, or there's deals that I get where the person's deceased, but I'm trying to get a hold of a family member. We haven't reinvented skip tracing at all, but a lot of the skip tracing platforms have this annoying minimum. So I'd have to upload 500 at once. I'm like, I just want one skip. So now there's no minimums. You can skip through there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And sorry, I'm going to backtrack here. You mentioned the word Leah. I think a lot of people don't know what Leah is.
Yeah.
Why don't you quickly explain that?
Yeah. So that's our community. We've got a slew of different programs. Our main one that people talk about is the Leah group coaching program. So it's a 12-month group coaching program. Jesse, we actually just did something kind of freaking insane 2 months ago. So we've always had a really strong guarantee with our program. Like if someone didn't make their money back, you're getting a refund. Thank God it's never happened. But I was like, I'm going to put my neck on the line. I said, you know what? I'm going to take it to the next level. So 2 months ago, we changed the guarantee for Leah. 6 figures in pipeline profit in 12 months, or we will work with you until you hit that. So it's guaranteeing a 6-figure land business. It scares me even to say those words. It's so bold, but I think we can do it. And the reason I felt confident making that is after going through the whatever 300 people that have gone through it, we had a really good kind of database of the folks. And we track everyone's KPIs. So folks that are on that offer, every month they report their KPIs, and we're kind of steering the ship with them. I tell people it's like the franchise model of land investing. Like, here's a playbook. Let's partner and let's go do it together.
Right, right. And by the way, you've got a great community as well that people can sort of get access to. Anybody
Yeah.
can get access. Is that still
Yeah.
around?
Yeah,
Your
totally
Discord?
free. Landinvestor.co/discord. Totally free to come hang out. And I am so against gatekeeping information. You can ask me whatever the heck you want. I always say people pay me for permission to go all in on themselves, for accountability. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, so make sure you guys check that out. I'll throw that in the group there. Sumner runs an amazing group. Now coming back to the whole thing that you're doing with that you've built. How can people learn a little bit more? How can people actually get access to something that you've created there?
Yeah, yeah, dude. So it's interesting. From the beginning, I never wanted it to be evergreen. So I was always scared that, like, because look at any given time, there's only so many good markets in the US. And there's a lot of them, but still, I'm like, what if you let in 1,000 people? Like, does that degrade the value for the users? I think we're very far away from that being a reality, but we're stair stepping our way to building it. So we just do like these little kind of parceling out launches here and there. We use like 25 to 50 seats. And we're just wrapping up our last launch. Um, Also, it's interview based, so you can't just go and join. You have to schedule a call, make sure you're a good fit. It's really for only for people that are doing at least a deal a month, and you got to be marketing consistently. If you're not doing that, don't get it. It's like the wrong time, wrong place. You just won't find the value in it if you're brand new. So the best way to do it, it's kind of a mouthful. Maybe I'll share the link with you. It's app.landinsights.co/register. You come hop on the call. Actually, you'll get on the call with Ari. Really cool story, just briefly. Came from the same hometown as me. Didn't know that. Joins Leah, kicks ass, gets Land Insights, also kicks ass. And I find I'm like, this guy's just too awesome to not work with. So we brought him on. He does all the onboarding and all the demo calls.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Um, thanks for diving deep in there and sort of helping us understand what that sort of funnel looks like. Should um, should people who are starting, I get a lot of people that are listening to the podcast are just getting started.
Yeah.
Is this also a path you recommend people who are getting started to go down?
Well, yes and no. I think when I say getting started, it depends on how early you are. So I tell people if you're under 3 months into land, don't do Land Insights. You'll still want to do some of the stuff that we're going to talk about here today manually. You'll quickly find out it's freaking laborious, but it can be done. I've got a crazy case study that I'll share of someone that didn't get Land Insights and did it all manually, no VAs. We'll talk about that later. It's pretty crazy. So the work still needs to get done, in my opinion. We'll talk about what that work entails. But yeah, usually about 3 months in. That's kind of based off of Leah stats. But like someone's 3 months into Leah, they're consistently doing 5,000 plus mailers a month. They should already have a deal or two at that point under contract. So that's the right time and place. But yeah, if you're brand spanking new and you haven't done any marketing, don't even think about it. But let's talk about what you do need to think about. Okay. So market selection has to be thought about. It's mandatory. The models change. The business is different nowadays. This is the crazy thing too, Jesse. So like we find these high demand markets that are like medium on the supply side. Bro, there's less people working there too. That's the darndest thing. I mean, these things are like these are called micropolitan markets. So if anyone wants to look at what a micropolitan market is, think the inverse of a metropolitan. So rural, small areas that pack a heavy punch for whatever reason. Like they're just like whether they're close to a national park, there's just something about them that like there's just a lot of interest there. Um, and so these markets, people just don't find them or don't spend the time. Everyone's playing this game of follow the leader, working the same generic markets. And so we just find it's actually easier to get deals there. But more than anything, the turnaround time is night and day. And most people inside of Leah are like sub 45 days, even without Land Insights, just through that process. So that's mandatory, in my opinion. The next thing is I think every land investor should start with blind offers unless you have a team. The reason being, blind offers are like your little salesperson. They're going out there doing the pre-qualifying of the seller for you. What you don't want to do is blast out a ton of neutral letters. You're at work taking 500 calls a week from freaking tire kicker leads. In fact, every month, bro, we get these people from, I won't say the name, but a very expensive program out there. I think it might be the most expensive program out there. And they recommend just neutral letters. And they get smoked. Bro, we had a guy that put his life savings into sending 60,000 neutral letters and got 0 deals from it in that program. It's crazy. The cool thing about blind offers too is that like I think it's a better experience for the seller. They seem to appreciate how just straightforward it is. So that's what I recommend to everyone. And that way you're only taking shots on goal with leads that come back. We get about a 0.04, maybe 0.05% response rate or 0.5% response rate, half of 1%. I think I got the math wrong on that one. That'd be very low. And usually about 60% of those leads are qualified. So send out 10,000, get 50 leads, maybe 30 of those are actually good fits.
Wow. Okay.
So that's
Really interesting.
Oh, go ahead, Jesse.
I was just going to say that's really interesting what you say about the whole blind offer and neutral letter. In terms of time wise, I know exactly what you're talking about. We do see that, and when you do have sort of a 9 to 5 or whatever else you're doing, and now you've got all these leads you got to follow up with, it is a shit ton of work
Yeah.
to go through. So yeah, appreciate you sort of drilling that in there. Okay, sorry.
Well, Jesse, one thing I wanted to chime in, just because I don't want people to misunderstand me. I also don't mean that you have to stay with blind offers or direct mail even forever. I think there's a time as you build a team and you've got infrastructure and people can run your cold calling or texting, slot that in front of the mail, right? And just start with the cheapest form. But in the beginning, yeah, direct mail is what I'd recommend.
Awesome. You mentioned a case study. What's that about?
Yeah. So I'll tie it into the next point that people need to work on. I've told this before. If you've been on my YouTube channel, you've probably seen it. Really funny story. I had a good friend in San Diego, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, but he said, "Hey, man, my brother's just kind of going through some stuff right now. Like I think he really needs something to sink his teeth into." And he was a bartender at the time. And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." He can schedule a call with the team and see where it goes. So he reaches out. This was actually before we even had a team on the sales side. So I think I took the call, and I could tell that I'm like, I don't think this guy's going to actually take action on it. Well, sure enough, a month later, he's like, "You know what, Sumner, I'm all in." And he's a bartender. He's living at home at the time. He's like, "I'm going to do it." And he jumps in, and he started with this pretty small budget. I think he had like 20 grand, but he was like only willing to deploy a fraction of that, like a really small amount. And he was very skeptical, so skeptical about this business. But he's a hard worker. Yeah, he's a hard worker. And I think after like a month or two of convincing and all the calls, like he finally got bought in, and that's when the light went off. So crazy methodical with his market selection. Crazy methodical with scrubbing his data. He scrubs about 50% of his data. We'll talk more about that here in a second. Crazy accurate with his offers and super methodical on the phones. This guy's not afraid to have a 2-hour conversation with a 70-year-old from Nebraska. Like he's just there for it, man. And I honestly, I feel like he's present for the work that he does, and he just shows up. It's just impressive. He shows up. So anyways, his first year, and he didn't get his first mail out probably until February of March of last year. So really not even starting on a full calendar year. $220,000 in profit, $7,000 in marketing. 7,000. That's about 14,000 letters. Um, Pretty impressive. And look, plenty of people make 220 grand their first year. It's the fact that he did it on such a small budget. So let's talk about how he did that. And those are repeatable by anyone else. He worked part time, nights and weekends. That's why blind offers are amazing. He's a bartender during most of the other days of the week. Um, and he did everything himself, no VAs, everything manually. So one thing I want to chime on, and we were talking about the blind offers. To make blind offers work, you have to understand if a market's priceable to begin with, and then you need to get good at actually interpreting values. So I just think typically find markets that are without 100% delta from that low to high price, take the median, offer 45 to 65% of that, depending on the price point of the properties. That percentage needs to slide up. The higher that property is, the more expensive it is. So might be at 45% sub 50, then you're at 55, 50 to 150, and it scales up. So it's not just going to be the same percentage for everything. This is the meat and potatoes, though. Okay, if anyone here is using data tree, theoretically this is possible in other platforms, but it's borderline impossible, but it is possible. But data tree is the easiest place to do it. Jesse, how familiar with data tree are you? Okay. Well, for those at home, if you're using data tree, you're prepping a list. You haven't exported it yet. If you have under 1,000 records, on the right hand side, you'll see there's a map, and it plots the properties there. It has to be under 1,000 records. What we teach and what we do is we actually go and scrub the ones that we don't want manually. Unclick, bang, bang, bang. What are we removing? Landlocked, weird shape, bad topography, which is hard to tell on a 2D map, but it is possible. We'll talk more about that. Flood zones, you can't remove wetlands. There's no overlay for it. So the bad topo and the wetlands, you can't get on data tree. That's one of the issues with it. But you can actually pre-scrub that before spending the money on the data. So what happens? We save the money on the data. We save the marketing cost. We save the Pat Live bill. You save your team's time and you save your time. There's a lot of savings going on, man, especially when you consider half the leads you're talking to are junk in most markets. Fluctuates from market to market. So you're shaving about 50% of his data right off the bat. And again, talking about having minimal time, I can guarantee most people watching this have a job or another business. You don't have that much time. So let's again talk to leads where the property is actually qualified to your standards, right? So remove the fluff, remove the junk. One thing I'll add on to just before someone makes this whoopsies, and I've done it too many times, it sucks. So usually inside data tree, we recommend removing the duplicate owners. If you're manually scrubbing, you still have to keep the duplicates in. If you click that, it'll get rid of all the work that you did. And it takes about 3 hours to scrub 1,000 records, just for context. Sucks. Sucks. So that's the work we were having VAs do in our business. And I mean, to get 5,000 records done a week was hard, not so much just because of the time side, because it's such horrible work. I mean, they just like didn't want to show up to work. They were late. They hated it. They dragged their feet. You can imagine how annoying that work is. Yeah.
Now, one thing you mentioned earlier, you went through it really quick. You said, make sure the county is priceable. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I just do my initial sniff test, right? Kind of like I was talking about before, just quickly going and breaking it down by acreage ranges and looking at that low to high price. I'm really going to start on the lower acreage bracket. And you can use the Pebble pricer, pull that down, see the median price, just quickly get a pulse on price. And then if I can validate that, hey, the smaller stuff is priceable, typically above 5 acres, I don't go much below that. I'll take the next step, I'll export the data, I'll really get my hands dirty with it. The problem is a lot of people go and do heavy market selection, and then they try to force a square peg in a round hole and try to force the pricing, but it's just not possible. That's one of the things in Land Insights. What we do is we show you the market. So you put in your specifications, it'll heat map it for you. And immediately, without pulling anything, you'll see, yes, this is priceable. No, it's not. So what you'll see is the Gini index, which scores it for how homogeneous it is, and then median price broken down by every time frame and acreage range. So what you want to do, I always tell people accurate pricing starts in the market selection process. And there's many good markets that we say no to because it's just not priceable via blind offers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Um, anything else you want to break down here in terms of a tactic?
Yeah, man. Well,
I
yeah,
hope you guys listening aren't really, you're probably going to have to re-listen to this because
yeah.
Sumner, you can tell he's got a lot here. But anything else that you want to break down here for us?
Yeah. Well, look, I've been studying this stuff for a year and a half, whatever it is now. I spent a lot of time doing it. We've got some really interesting metrics that I can share with you guys. So what we've seen from following this process before and after, it's a 91.67% increase in ROAS. So most people inside of Leah are doing 8, 10x ROAS. We're doubling that through this process. It's a culmination of all the things we're going to talk about here. On the market selection side alone, it saves you, this is actually a Land Insight stat, but through Land Insights, it's 8 hours a week saved by removing kind of the manual aspect of the market selection. And then a 79% increase in offer accuracy. A lot of that comes from just seeing that pricing data first. And again, you can do that manually and making decisions off that, baking that into your market selection process. I mean, really, I think where this business is going is like the day and age of just being spray and pray on everything is disappearing. I think it's really about being a sniper. And we see it, dude. There's tons of people. There's a guy inside of Leah who just joined, I think 4 months ago. Dude, he's done over 1,000 acres worth of deals. The 35 plus deals that he's done in 4 months. And so it doesn't mean that your volume has to be low. It's just having a really efficient business. So like the throughputs is super efficient. For context, too, just one thing that I do want to throw out, the big aha that we've been working on, and we've cracked the code on a few areas for this, but there's still a lot more work for us to do, is automating the scrubbing. So inside of Land Insights, it's not going and clicking them manually. It's you upload the list and automates it. So we've got it automated for wetlands and for landlocked. We've got it manual for all the other features. We've got like contour lines and all that stuff, and you can manually do it. We also have tagging for subdivide or entitlement properties, but we're making that whole entire process automated. So someone uploads their data set, pays 2 cents, removes all of the landlocked properties in a flash. Takes like 5 minutes per 1,000 records or something like that. So that's the big unlock. Dude, I don't know if you know, do you know who Jerry is? Mad Viking. Oh, he's an OG in the land space, man. This guy, you should get Jerry on. I might have to connect you guys. He's a great guy for you to talk to. But he told me last week, just through the scrubbing on Land Insights, he saved 44 hours in scrubbing time just from removing it from a VA and uploading it there.
So help me understand this. I know we didn't dive too much into what Land Insights is. Are they pulling a list? Are they uploading a list?
Yeah.
And then it's cleaning it? What's the process here? Help us understand on a very basic level.
Yeah. So I'll give you the quick nuts and bolts. So really, you could almost, it's a ROAS time savings tool. Some people have almost called it like a CRM, but for marketing. We don't do any CRM stuff on it, but like we have got ways to categorize your campaigns and Kanban boards for campaigns. So it starts top of funnel. You're going to go visualize, put in your inputs for what you want for markets, visualize it. And you can put in your inputs for how priceable you want it to be, and it'll just go populate those results for you. Then you go take that, you add it to your marketing Kanban board. Then you go pull data on Redfin or what have you to go and actually start pricing it out. Then you're going to go pull that list from whatever you use. Could be Data Tree, Land Vision, fill in the blank. Now you'll upload that list to Land Insights. It'll scrub it for you. We'll export it and you'll go mail it. And then you start getting leads back. You'll pull those leads. You'll skip trace those leads inside of Land Insights if you want to go get a relative, or a lot of times we get phone numbers but no email, or vice versa. I can't tell you how many people lose deals because they get an email from someone that doesn't have a phone number. They email them back, they never get a hold of them. Bro, those have been some of our best deals. So sometimes you got to kind of hunt these people down. Then you'll actually start doing deals, and then you'll come into Land Insights, pull the realtor report, which is totally free. So you say, hey, show me the best realtors in Costilla. Go aggregate a list of 100, give you all their contact information, and then connect you. One of the cool things that we're working on too, this doesn't exist anywhere currently, but is creating a list of investor-friendly realtors. So there's a difference between a good realtor and an investor-friendly realtor. And so it's all user-generated to track that. We're actually trying to create some partnerships with realtors that kind of fit into our model.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing stuff. So to learn more, I'll make sure to throw that link in the chat there. Oh, sorry, in the show notes there. Sumner, that was a lot, and that's a great thing about chatting people with like yourself, that not only manages a community, and but you're in there and you're trying different things, and you're experimenting on a lot. So we do appreciate you breaking all of that down. Sumner, anything else you want to share with us here? I feel like I want to continue to milk you, and I'm sure a lot of people are listening. What else you got to say, Sumner?
The one thing that I want to add, just more from like a principle standpoint, and I unfortunately I see this in our community, I've seen it in other communities, is like, look, this business is not going to remain constant. Like any industry, it's going to mature. It's going to become a little harder in some ways. And so you need to stay in front of the 8 ball. I see a lot of people that pisses them off. I think because they walk into a model that's proven, so it seems like very push button, just go do this and you get deals. But brother, or sister, whatever, like whoever you are, you're still an entrepreneur. You can't forget that, right? And entrepreneurship to me is the scientific method. Hey, something's not working. Hypothesis, go run an experiment, collect the data. I'm sure you know this. Did it work? Did it not work? People don't want to do that. And so all the things I'm talking about here today just came from experimenting, and we've unlocked a lot of value because of it. So don't be afraid to experiment. And when things change or get difficult, there's always like a silver lining or adjacent opportunity that opens up, right? So double closing, I don't know if you know this, Jesse, but double closing is pretty much done in South Carolina. I'm sure you've heard about it, right? I guarantee you, give it a few months, there'll be some workaround. Like something always happens. So don't be scared. Just experiment and have fun with it.
I totally get where you come from, and I think a lot of people look at that from a scared lens, and I have myself. But a lot of times you look back and it's like, man, it was fun that we dug, we got resourceful, we tried different things, and that's really the fun of being an entrepreneur. And in the land space, it's no different. You come into this, there is no set it and forget it button.
Yeah.
Things have changed. It's dramatically since when I started, and it's really, really interesting, and it's what keeps the game exciting. It allows you to stay on top too if you wanted to, and so I appreciate you emphasizing that.
Man. Yeah.
Sumner, hey, listen, this show is going to air a little bit earlier, but I know you do also. I want to make sure I plug this in because I had a blast with the few hours that I was out there last time, but I'm hoping to stick around a little bit longer this time.
Hopefully.
But you're doing something out in October. I know we're still a few months for those that are listening. I urge you guys to mark this on your calendar. Can you I don't know if this is like, is it too early to share?
No. We just opened up the stuff for a couple weeks ago. So October 27th, 28th, we're doing a 300-person land investing event here in Vegas. It's right off the strips in Old Town. We have an extra day, it's 26 days for VIP. We got like a go-kart track, and we go hiking and do dinners and whatnot. So if you go to landinvestor.co/mastermind, I think we probably have like 4 or 5 VIP tickets left, and then a good amount of general admission. But come hang out. It's going to be awesome. If you were there last year, it's going to be bigger and better. And we've got a killer lineup of guest speakers. So we haven't released the full list. We're kind of dripping it out. I'll give a little teaser. People like Callan Faulkner, people like John Jasniak, a lot of names that you've probably heard of, and probably a lot of names that you haven't heard of. I'm bringing some sleepers out that are killers. Some people are going to be like, what the heck? So it's going to be a really, really fun event. What I will say, the big thing that I learned last year, maybe you can attest to this, Jesse, I think it was too much information, too much speaking, too much value. So we're slotting that back. Really what I want to create is camaraderie. It's like you leave these events, and it's the people that you met in the hallway, or it's the laughs you shared, the bonds you made. Like that's the life-changing stuff.
It was.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm going to say this. I saw the dynamic totally change when people get up off their seat, go outside of the venue and talk. And that's where you saw there was so many powerful, individualized bubbled conversations
Yeah.
going on, which I think a lot of people connect. And I strongly encourage, others to come out. Sorry, I cut you off
No,
though.
you're good, brother. You're good. No, seriously, if you're new in land, you're seasoned in land, look at no one needs to do this business on their own. Unfortunately, I think there's not a lot of community in the land space. It's because it's a small little pond, right? I want to change that. I want to be the community guy. I want to bring people together. It's not a pitch fest. We're not here to sell you anything. It's literally just to come and hang out. It's funny. I got so many messages last year, and they still come. People that created like 7-figure funding relationships, people that have partnered on big deals. A lot of people that said that was the weekend that changed their life, not because of the information. But I think sometimes you meet people that you look up to and you're like, they're no different than I. Like if they could do it, I could do it. And so it just kind of sets the new standard for yourself. So yeah, come on out. Jesse will be there. Kevin will be there. It'll be a blast.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's I've been to other events as well. It only takes one conversation to change the trajectory. I mean that. I don't,
Mhm.
any event. It doesn't have to be Sumner's event. Just get out there. It just takes one conversation to really flip the switch on things in your life. So, Sumner, thank you for organizing that as well. And again, I encourage a lot of you guys to check out Sumner's group as well. He's got a very active Discord group. I'll make sure to include that in the show notes. Sumner, thank you for coming on the show, blasting us with information. And I'm sure you guys are going to have to re-listen to this. So please do that. Sumner, it's been a pleasure chatting with you and catching up with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate everyone for watching. Thank you, guys. Hopefully it was helpful.
And listen, next time we're gonna have you on, you're gonna be in Bali, right?
We are. Yeah. A couple of weeks from now.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Cheers. Before you stop this episode or hit the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast by Pebble. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate any awesome reviews and ratings on whichever platform you are listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast or the specific episode that may help them on their land investing journey. Once again, thanks so much for listening and catch you on our next episode.